I never know if these live streams are working. Let me know if you can hear me in the comments, or the messages, I should say. I think I'm just about to appear on my laptop. That's me there. Hello. Right. So I will close that down. So hello there, people. I hope you're well. That was such a good episode. I absolutely love that. I don't even know where to begin, to be honest. I'm on such a high at the moment because, as I just said, I really liked that episode. It was so good to see the Sontarans taken seriously for a change. We've had so many years of, don't get me wrong, I liked Strax as a character, but he did, well, it wasn't him, it was more Stephen Moffat. He made the Sontarans a bit of a joke. So to have an episode like this, where you see them killing people, you see them in a big battle as well, bloody love that. That was amazing. Just to see them be a force to be reckoned with, it was just so good. And I just loved how the episode was mainly focused on them. Obviously, we had everything going on in the Temple of Atropos, I think it's called, as well. We'll get into that in a second. But yeah, in terms of the Sontarans, I thought they were handled so well in this episode. And oh, I just loved it. I'm not sure whether I preferred this Sontaran story to the Series 4 one, the Sontaran Stratagem and the Poison Sky, but it's definitely up there. It's yeah, I really like this episode. And dare I say it, I think I actually prefer it to last week's episode. Last week's episode was good, but because it was setting up a lot of storylines for the series, it didn't really flow that well. Whereas this episode was much more focused. Obviously, we just had the three strands. We had the Doctor's storyline, which was the main bulk of the episode. That was in the Crimean War. And obviously, there were Sontarans there, as we all know. You then had Dan's strand, which was also linked to the Sontarans. He was battling them in the present day. And then you've got Yaz's storyline, which was separate from the storylines, but that's more to do with the series arc of the Ravagers and what they're trying to do to time. So, yeah, in terms of focus, this episode was much better in that sense. Sorry, let me just check I've got the right filters on. So this is normal filter. No, we don't want Dream. I think Beam is what I had last week, but I think that's a bit too bright. So I'll put it on normal. And I think I've got the messages. Yep, I can see people's messages coming in. Lovely. Yep, while I'm talking, please do message away your thoughts on the episode. I will love to hear it. Yeah, so I think what I'll do for the next few minutes, while you guys are sharing your thoughts on the episode, I'll just work my way through a list of notes that I've made about my thoughts of the episode. Some of these I've already covered, so do bear with me. I never really know how to structure these live discussions, and I think I am a bit rusty, so you do have to bear with me. Yeah, so like I said, I really enjoyed this episode. I had a big grin on my face by the end of it. I think I was a bit worried beforehand that I wouldn't like how Chibnall handled the Sontarans, but I thought he did a really good job overall. Very quickly, let's talk about the beginning of the episode. So I think a lot of people have forgotten about this now, and actually I forgot about it too until I quickly went back on BBC iPlayer and scrolled through the whole episode. But if you remember, the very start of the episode, we saw the Doctor wake up in this, I think it was black and white area, and it looked like she was in this clearing, and she saw this very weird, creepy, floating building. And I believe, obviously, this is going to come back into the show at some point later on this series, but I believe it was the same building as what Diane was lured into in last week's episode. So that was very interesting. I think right before the scene ends, you see the Doctor lose control of her legs and starts to move towards the building. So there's something about this sinister haunted house that's compelling people to walk towards it. And it seems to be something to do with the Ravagers, because as we saw last week, Diane walked through the doors, ended up in this weird quarry place, and Azure was there. And I think she did some menacing laugh. And that's all we saw last week. So Chibnall seems to be teasing this building a bit more, but I have no idea how it's relevant to the wider storyline. If you do have any theories, let me know. I'll quickly see if anyone is talking about the creepy building. No, not at the moment. Yeah, so that was a bit odd. So that was the very start of the episode. And the next note I've got written down, the pre-titles. It seems like they're here to stay. We've had 2 episodes in a row now that have both began with pre-titles, which I'm so glad about. I absolutely love Doctor Who episodes having a bit before the opening titles, so I really hope this continues for the rest of the series. I just find it a really good way of hooking people in at the start of the episode. I don't know, it's just with Series 11 in particular, as much as I liked the new version of the theme tune, it didn't necessarily get me excited for each episode. Whereas now, you can have a whole 5-minute chunk at the start of the episode, and you can have sort of like a mini cliffhanger before the opening titles. And this week, it was the fact that Sontarans have changed history. So that was really cool. Yeah, so I'm glad that the pre-titles are back. Hopefully you guys are as well. There was no Claire, Diane or Weeping Angels this week, which I'm kind of glad about, to be honest. Like I said in last week's video, although it was really interesting to have all of these characters and plot lines introduced, you do then start to lose focus. So in that sense, it was quite good that they didn't make an appearance this week, because it meant we got more Sontaran action and more of the Ravagers, which seem to be the key players at the moment. But no doubt they'll come back. Jumping ahead to the next time trailer for next week very quickly, I think we all saw the Weeping Angel appear at the very end of the trailer. That was a shock. I genuinely thought we wouldn't see them again until episode 4, Village of the Angels, as we now know it's called. Yeah, so it looks like we've got them appearing in episode 1, episode 3, and episode 4 at least. So half of this series, which is really exciting. And Claire, she'll also appear in episode 4. I think that's been confirmed. But again, she could appear in more episodes than that. Although I personally think she won't. I'm hoping to be proved wrong, because I'm really fascinated by her, and I think the actress playing her is quite good as well. But I don't know, there is a part of me that thinks her storyline will be wrapped up by the end of episode 4. But hopefully I'm wrong. And Diane, I think she's going to appear in most of the episodes throughout the rest of the series. Yes, that was something else I wanted to ask. Maybe you guys would have an answer to this. Why did the Flux send the Doctor, Dan and Yaz to the Crimean War? I think they briefly explained it at the start of the episode, but I didn't quite catch what that explanation was. So if any of you guys know, please do let me know in the chat. I will very quickly plug in my laptop. I should have done it before the stream started, but because I'm disorganised, I completely forgot to do that. Bear with me. Okay, right. Yeah, so the Flux, I'm still not quite sure what's going on there, and I think that's partly intentional. But whereas last week it looked like the Flux would destroy reality, this week it seems to have just sent the Doctor, Yaz, and Dan back in time. So I don't really know what that's all about. I'm hoping it's not poor writing, but I do feel like it might be, to be honest. I really enjoyed the parlay scene between the Doctor and the lead Sontaran. I've already forgotten his name, to be honest, but I thought that was really cool. I loved just the sheer distance between them. I know that's a weird thing to like, but I loved those shots where you could see the Doctor on the left-hand side and then the Sontaran on the other. I thought that was really cool. And we saw a battle. How could I forget? That battle, so cool. In an ideal world, I would have liked it to be longer, probably the length of what we've seen in Game of Thrones. I mean, I can't talk. I've never watched Game of Thrones, I'm afraid. But yeah, considering we only saw, what was it, 30 seconds of a battle, it was still epic. Incredible CGI for that. I was blown away. And I just loved seeing how ruthless the Sontarans were and how they basically annihilated all of the British soldiers. I don't think there was a single Sontaran dead on the battlefield. I could be wrong there, but I think they did say actually afterwards that practically all of the British soldiers had been killed off and hardly any Sontarans had been injured. So yeah, I really like that. That was just epic. I thought Jodie Whittaker gave an excellent performance this week. Those of you that have been following my channel for a while now would know that I haven't necessarily warmed to the 13th Doctor so far. And often, in most episodes in fact, there's been various scenes and lines where I felt like Jodie's performance hasn't always been up to scratch. But this week, there wasn't a single moment that got me thinking like that. And in fact, I thought the opposite. I thought her line delivery was superb. So that was really good. I think War of the Sontarans is quickly becoming one of my favourite 13th Doctor stories so far. But we'll have to wait and see if I still feel that way by the end of the series. Mary Seacole, she appeared. And to be honest, I'm glad that the episode didn't focus too much on her. As much as I like the celebrity historicals, I do feel like the show has had a lot of historical figures in the past couple of series. And if the episode was to focus more on her in this episode, it would have taken a lot of focus away from the series arc and the Sontarans. So I thought she was handled quite well. Obviously, there was a few scenes where the Doctor said, this is who we're being introduced to, and this is why she's significant. But the episode didn't dwell on it too much, which I'm glad about. I've said about the Sontarans already. I love it when there's death in Doctor Who. I'm a bit of a, is it sadist? Is that the word for it? I just love seeing villains that actually kill people. So I thought the scene where the Sontarans killed those people in modern day Liverpool, I thought that was not scary, but just cool, as I keep saying. And obviously they killed lots of people in the battlefield as well. Yeah, so it's just, I just really like how the Sontarans were handled this week. Chibnall did a really good job. I wonder though, would the Sontarans appear later on this series? Or is this the end of their part in this Flux storyline? I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. So Sontarans. And then, yeah, another thing, this episode was so good that it's actually made me want to go away and read up about Mary Seacole and the Crimean War. So that's a good sign. if you have a historical that actually makes people want to research and learn more about the period, you've done a good job of fascinating people. But obviously, I know that in the research, I'm not going to find out that Sontarans were part of the battle, sadly. But I'm still interested to learn about Mary Seacole, especially. I think I've said this bit already, but just in case I haven't, I thought this episode was much better structured than last week's. We just had the three strands of the Doctor, Yaz, and Dan, and we didn't have all these side characters and monsters as well. So, in that regard, this episode was stronger than last week's. And yeah, on that topic, I actually really enjoyed seeing the gang separated. It gave each of the characters a chance to shine in their own environment. And Yaz in particular, as I said last week, it was brilliant to see her take charge of the situation. And when she met Vinda, she acted like the Doctor in a way. So that was really interesting to see. I'll try and go through the next few points as quickly as I can because I do want to get into your comments. But yeah, while I'm talking, do share your theories for what you think will happen in next week's episode and the future ones, and also what you think the Mori are and the Temple of Atropos, and just all of these questions that Chibnall was asking us. I would love to hear your theories on it. Oh yeah, that's another note I wrote down. I can imagine that there's going to be so many memes made of Dan and his wok over the coming weeks. We've already had a few memes when that promo pic was released a couple of weeks ago. But now that we've actually got scenes in an episode of him holding a wok, I can imagine that there's going to be so many memes about that. And I can't wait to see them. Speaking of Dan, we met his parents this week. That was interesting. They seem likeable enough. That there's not really much more I can say about them, to be honest. I liked them, but they obviously didn't have that much screen time. What I did like though was the little I think it was a gag, the bit where I think Dan's mum was saying that Dan's dad thought the Sontarans would be gone by the weekend or something like that. I thought that was a brilliant moment, and I did burst out laughing at that. Oh yeah, speaking of memes, I should have said this before actually. If you haven't already seen it, go onto YouTube, go onto Doctor Who Poop's YouTube channel and search for Evil Dan. You won't regret it. It's a hilarious 1-minute video and I bloody love it. In the past week, I've already watched it about 7 times, I think, once every day. It's just so funny. And as soon as you finish watching this video, go and watch it because you will not regret it. Moving on. So yeah, the next few points are all to do with the Temple of Atropos storyline. So, to be honest, that was the least interesting part of the episode for me. I was still fascinated by it, but I think because I love the Sontarans so much, I just wanted to see as much of them as possible. And for most of the episode, I guess you could argue the temple scenes was mainly just Yaz and Vinda walking around, discovering these triangles, discovering the Mori as well. It was just a lot of discovering things, but not necessarily learning information. That seemed to come once the Ravagers arrived. But like I said, although it was my least favourite part of the episode, I wasn't bored by it. I was still fascinated. So yeah, the Ravagers, they seem to want time to unravel. That's the vibe that I got from them. But a little note I made on my laptop, how is that different from what the Flux does? That's something I find quite interesting. So you've got the Flux, which seems to be destroying time or reshaping it, but then you've got the Mori and the Temple of Atropos, which seems to be in charge of keeping the flow of time in order. And the point I'm trying to make is the flux is already affecting the universe. So what difference does it make the Ravagers killing off these Maury characters? That's something I'm not quite sure about, but hopefully we learn a bit more over the coming weeks. Joseph Williamson randomly appeared in the temple. That was a bit of an odd scene, especially considering that was his only scene in the episode. He didn't actually come back after that point. But at least he appeared. But to be honest, I just feel like he was shoehorned into the episode. I tried to rewatch the scene before setting this up, actually, and not much information is given in the one scene he's in. He just sees Yaz. Yaz tries to ask him about where they are. He doesn't know. He says that he's from 1820, and then he wanders off, and that's it. He's gone after that point. All the scenes that came later in the temple, he's nowhere to be seen. So that was very strange. But it is clear he's going to be one of these characters that matters much more later on. Something I did wonder about, is he going to be a character that matters in the finale? Or is he going to have his own focused episode, presumably episode 5? Would that be an episode that's all set in Liverpool's past in the 19th century? Actually, as I speak, I think I've just talked myself out of that. I think, okay, hold me to this. We'll see if I'm right in a few weeks. I think the series finale will be set in the 19th century Liverpool. And I think that's when we'll find out what Joseph Williamson is doing with the tunnels. Okay, so if I get that wrong, feel free to have a go at me and say that my theory was completely misjudged. But that's what I think will happen. Yeah, just a quick note I wrote down. I thought it was a lovely idea for Yaz to have written on her hand, what would the Doctor do? I thought that was a nice little character moment, or character trait. It was nice to see Vinder back as well, although yet again, he didn't really do that much, and he didn't have that much screen time. But he's met Yaz, at least. And technically, he's now met the Doctor and Dan as well. But obviously, they haven't had a chance to speak because the Ravagers were monologuing. Yeah, so I've said this before. The Maury, they seem to be responsible for time. And I think the intention is if they're destroyed, time falls apart. And as we saw at the end of the episode, it seems Yaz and Dan have replaced 2 of the Maury, and we had that cool cliffhanger moment of Swarm saying that in 5 seconds' time they'll be flooded with, I think, what was it, all the memories of time, or all of time would flow through them, something like that. Speaking of that cliffhanger, what I quite liked about it is it was very Classic Who-esque. And I know this because, funnily enough, I actually watched The Time Warrior the other day for the first time. And yeah, in all the Classic Who episodes I've seen, which is a fair few, there's a lot of cliffhangers where the villain is about to do something, but then it cuts to the credits before you see the result of that action. And that's exactly what we had in this episode. You had the countdown from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you see Swarm click his fingers, and then I think, doesn't he reach his hand out towards Yaz as well? And then it cuts to the credits. And as soon as I saw that, I thought, this is just like Classic Who, which is a nice little link to the past. Obviously Yaz is fine though. We even saw her in the trailer. But the question is, how much of next week's episode would she be in danger for? Is it going to be something that's resolved in 5 seconds, like a lot of cliffhangers? Or is Chibnall going to roll with it for half the episode? Is she going to be frozen in place for much of the episode's runtime? A bit of me thinks it is going to be the latter of what I just said, because if you paid attention to the trailer that leaked a couple of days ago, there was a blink and you'll miss it moment where Yaz, I think she's in the TARDIS, and she seems worried and she says something, and she seems to be frozen in place. So presumably that's linked in with the fact that she's now taken the place of the Maury. Carvanista, he came back in this episode. That was a nice surprise. I don't think he was mentioned in the cast list for this episode. Yeah, so I certainly wasn't expecting him to come back. I loved the banter he had with Dan. I loved the banter in last week's episode, and it was just as funny this time around. So that was pretty cool. And then I think the only other points I wanted to mention were all to do with next week's episode. So the next time trailer. So we've got a brand new coat for Jodie Whittaker. It seems to be an inverted version of her trademark 13th Doctor's coat. So we've got dark blue on the outside and then the light blue on the inside. Really looking forward to seeing the costume variation. I said before, and I'll say again, the Weeping Angels are back next week as well. Was not expecting to see them in the trailer. I genuinely thought the next time we would see them would be in episode 4, Village of the Angels. So I'm very intrigued to see how they play a part next time. And then the only other point I wanted to say about next week's episode is that it looks like, I'm not sure if it will be the whole episode or just the majority of it, but it seems most of the episode will be set on the planet Time, where the Temple of Atropos is located. So that's very intriguing. Hopefully we'll get to see much more of the planet. And then just to read out the final 2 points, I'm almost at the end. Hopefully I'm not boring you guys. I wanted to quickly share my theory for what I think the Ravagers are at this moment in time. It's a bit of a half-baked theory, to be honest, but it's a theory nonetheless. I think they're the reason that death exists in the universe. Because if you look at their powers, they're very destructive. And I think, I could be completely missing the mark here, but I think what Chibnall is hinting at is that the Ravagers, so like I just said, the Ravagers are the reason that death exists, and everything they touch turns into, well, it disintegrates, as we saw last week. And I think the Doctor is the opposite of that. She's the reason we have life in the universe, and that is why she has this regeneration ability of constantly renewing her body. And as we discovered in series 12, that's what the Time Lords nicked from her. So I think when we had that scene last week of Swarm saying to the Doctor that they've been battling essentially since the dawn of the universe, my guess is it's a battle of life and death. And like I just said, they're the reason that we have life and death in the universe. That's the only idea I've had so far. If you guys have any ideas, please do let me know in the chat. Oh, and by the way, guys, in case you haven't already seen, at the top of the chat box, wherever it is, there should be a poll question. So quickly answer that, saying whether you loved the episode, liked it, don't know what to make, or hated it. My voice is starting to go now. Great. Always happens in these live streams. It's because I keep talking without pausing. Yeah, so answer the poll question. I'd love to see what you made of the episode. And I will quickly have a look to see how many people have voted in it. Oh, wow. 23 votes so far. Thank you very much, everyone who's voted in it. So 48% of viewers loved the episode. 22% liked it and didn't know what to think. And 9% unfortunately hated it. Well, I'm glad to see that almost half of this video's viewers loved the episode. I don't know how I would answer it yet. I certainly liked it, but whether or not I loved it, I won't know until I've rewatched the episode. And I'm probably going to do that as soon as I finish this live stream, to be honest, because like I said, I really like the episode, and I'm definitely up for watching it again. So if you've only just joined this video, please do vote in the poll. Let me know what you thought of the episode. Yeah, okay. So that's basically all of my thoughts of the episode. And now let's get into your comments. Scroll all the way back. Should I look at them from my phone or my laptop? I'll try my phone for now. And I need to have another drink of water because I am dying. So, Funtime Foxy liked the episode. This season is off to a great start. Yep, completely agree. I wasn't expecting it to be as long as it was either. Yeah, so that's something. It's quite strange to have episode 2 be longer than episode 1. Normally, in the vast majority of the New Who series, we've had the start and end of a series be the longest episodes, and then everything in the middle is no longer than 50 minutes. So it is quite bizarre that last week's episode was only 50 minutes long, and that had so much to set up. And yet this week's episode, which was much more focused and arguably didn't need to be an hour long, ended up being an hour long. But I'm not complaining. The more Sontaran action we can see, the better. Oh, my stupid voice. I feel like there's dust stuck in my throat because I never clean my room. It's ridiculous. Anyway, Planet Adam, hello, thank you for joining. Hopefully you're still here. Swarm and Azure are going to be up there with the Daleks and Cybermen. I hope so. They certainly have the potential, and they're certainly better than Tim Shaw from Series 11 in terms of design, acting, and everything, basically. But yes, it will be very interesting to see if by the end of the series they end up being just as popular as the Daleks and Cybermen. I think they probably won't quite reach the heights, hand on heart, but if they could be... I'm just trying to think back to series villains. Most of the time, the series villains have been one of the 3 main ones. And by the main ones, I mean Daleks, Cybermen, or the Master. I can't really think of any villain, series villain, that's not them. I suppose we had the Silence for Series 6. Any others? Is that it? So what, we've got Daleks, Cybermen, Master, Silence for Series 6, Tim Shaw for Series 11. Is there no other big series villains that we've had? Or have I just drawn a blank? I have no idea. But yeah, we won't know for sure if the Ravagers will be up there until the end of the series. But from what we've seen so far, they are brilliant villains. Very threatening, amazing powers, amazing design as well. I love how they're different colours. Oh, that's something I forgot to mention. Just a very quick point. We were introduced to a new, well, I think it's a Ravager. It's a new character, at least. Passenger. So Passenger was that 7-foot tall masked being that walked behind Swarm and Azure. He's the one that we've known about for months now. I think ages ago, a filming picture was released by someone on Twitter showing Passenger, but at the time we didn't know what he was called. Yeah, so we met him this week. That's all we did, basically. There was no... I don't think he had any lines of dialogue, and he didn't do that much, actually, come to think of it. Did he just stand there? I think he did. But he looked quite threatening, at least. He's very tall and very creepy mask he's wearing. Something I wondered, and this is what I made a note about, is there a reason we haven't seen his face? is there going to be some revelation about who he is? Or is it just what the character is? Is it just, this is Passenger, this is what his face is meant to look like, there's no more to dwell on it? Or is there going to be a big revelation about what he looks like underneath? No idea. Sir 4 probably isn't in this chat anymore, but wasn't sure if they liked it more than last week's, but it was more focused. Yeah, so it's exactly like I said. Control Hype Wall. This was definitely one of 13's best. Yep, completely agree. Hopefully I still feel that way once I've had time to digest the episode. But in terms of initial impressions, definitely really liked it. And definitely think it is a highlight. Geek Rambles, hello. My jaw has been frozen. I think it's been dropped forever. Yes. Hopefully you've picked your jaw back up now and slotted it back into place. But what was it, if you're still here, Geek Rambles, what was it that made your jaw drop? Was it the cliffhanger? Was it the whole episode? Let me know. I'd love to hear it. TM Martin, hello Dr. Blue. No sign of Dan's lady, Di or Claire. Yeah, so it's exactly like I said earlier. Just to reiterate, as much as I liked the characters, I am quite glad about that, to be honest, because as I keep saying, this episode was more focused, and normally focused episodes are better written, and that's what I found with this episode actually. But no doubt we will see them again later on in the series, and the sooner the better in Claire's case. Planet Adam preferred the Series 4 Sontaran two-parter. That's fair enough. Like I said earlier, I don't really know where I would place War of the Sontarans yet, but it's definitely given the Sontaran stratagem a run for its money. Hello to Savija, John's Doctor Who. Nice to see you, and thank you for the kind words about my channel. TM Martin has brought up the fact that Bob Baker has sadly passed away. Yeah, that is very sad news. And it is a bit of a shame they couldn't have done a dedication at the end of this week's episode. But maybe they're planning on doing it for next week's instead. Maybe they didn't have enough time to put it on this week's episode. Funtime Foxy has brought up that brilliant line from the Sontaran, saying that he wanted to ride a horse. That completely took me by surprise. I didn't expect it to say that. TM Martin, Carvanista is a total hero. Yeah, absolutely. He's quickly becoming not one of my favourite characters, I would say, but the more I see him, the more I fall in love with him. Obviously, last week he was treated as more of a villain until the big revelation that he's Dan's protector. But now that we know that he's there to protect Dan, we can enjoy his character a lot more. Funtime Foxy, the Flux seems to be controlled by the Swarm and he's trying to test the Doctor. Good idea. I quite like that. The Flux, yeah, controlled by the Swarm and he's trying to test the Doctor. But it's like I said before though, how is that different or linked with what the Temple of Atropos is? Is that a separate... What I'm trying to say is I don't understand what difference it would make if the Mori were to be killed off as opposed to what we've got at the moment of the Flux looking like it's destroying the universe. Sorry guys, can't believe I'm losing my voice. Oh dear. TM Martin, last week the TARDIS had multiple doors. Oh, I didn't know you could do a door emoji. That's quite cool. Maybe too many, and this week there weren't enough doors. Why was that? To be honest, TM Martin, I think that was just convenience for the plot. I think Chibnall needed a reason for the Doctor to be stuck in the Crimean War, so he just said, well, last week there was lots of doors, and this week the TARDIS had no way of getting inside it, so he got rid of the doors. I quite like that moment, actually, where the Doctor's going round the TARDIS trying to find the door, and there isn't one. But then, going back to the convenience thing, which I think Planet Adam mentioned earlier, it was a bit convenient that later on, I think the TARDIS randomly materialised right next to where the Doctor was, and just so happened to be working. And then the Doctor picked up Dan, and then suddenly the TARDIS was hijacked. It's like I said at the start of this video, as much as I liked the episode, there was a lot of coincidences and conveniences going on. And hopefully, by the end of the series, these will be explained. But I do feel like Chibnall just wanted people to be in certain environments at certain parts of the episode. And so he contrived these arguably lazy ways of getting people there. Funtime Foxy has brought up that great line from The Poison Sky. This isn't war, this is sport. Yeah, love that line. I've quoted it many times over the years. Don't know why, I just have. But yeah, I do love that line. Control Hype Wall. Did anyone else notice the reference to Commander Lynx, the first ever Sontaran we saw in the Time Warrior? Yep, I noticed it. And the reason I noticed it is, like I said before, earlier this week, I actually watched that story for the very first time. Truth be told, I think had I not watched that story, I probably wouldn't have known who Lynx was. I think I would have known it was a reference to Classic Who, but I wouldn't have known the specific story. But yeah, now that I've seen the episode, I appreciated that reference so much more. And you can tell that Chibnall is a fan of the Sontarans because he's brought up this character that hasn't been seen since, what was it, the early 70s? I think it was 1973 that the Time Warrior aired. So there's going to be lots of fans my age and younger who don't know who Lynx is. So that was a nice reference for the older fans. Oh, my voice is going. So sorry, guys. I might have to finish this stream early, to be honest, if my voice can't hold out. But I'll keep going for as long as I can. TM Martin, glad Whittaker is less manic acting in the role now. She's going into it as she's just about to shove off. Yes, that's a fair assessment, to be honest. And I think that's why, like I said earlier, I didn't notice anything wrong with her acting in this week's episode. Maybe some of it is down to the writing as well. Maybe Chibnall has improved in how he writes his scripts. But yeah, it just seemed like less exposition. It seemed less manic, like you said. And just a lot more enjoyable overall. Funtime Foxy, all the Sontarans got exploded, so they probably won't appear again. Yes, good point, and a sad point to make. But it was fun while it lasted. We had 2 episodes of them, and they got a nice redesign. So as much as I like the Sontarans, I think I wouldn't necessarily mind if they were rested for the next few years. I'm just really glad that we've had another episode where they're taken seriously again. Because I think off the back of how Moffat treated Strax and just the Sontarans as a species, I think I was worried that we would never have an episode where the Sontarans were proper villains again. So I'm so glad that Chibnall has gone against my expectations and actually said, nope, we're going to treat them as a serious villain, have them kill people, and not make jokes about their height and the fact they look like a baked potato. Geek Rambles, oh my god, how much was there a parallel between 10 and 13 when they're having a right Barney with someone who blew a species up? I'm not sure what that connection is, to be honest, Geek Rambles. Maybe my brain's not working this evening. But I don't know, considering I'm meant to be the world's biggest 10th Doctor fan, I don't know what episode that's referring to. TM Martin, do you think Series 13 is ruining its cliffhangers by showing these overly detailed next time trailers? Good question. Potentially, but I don't mind it, to be honest. My concern, hand on heart, as much as I've liked these cliffhangers we've had, dare I say it, I think they could have been better. I can't quite put my finger on it, but there's something about them. Maybe it's just I've grown older now, and as much as I still love Doctor Who, it doesn't have the same impact on me as it did when I was like 10. But I feel like, as exciting as the cliffhangers are, they don't necessarily have my jaw on the floor, like Geek Rambles was saying earlier. It still gets me excited for the following week's episode, but I don't find myself thinking, how on earth is the Doctor going to get out of this? And maybe that is down to the fact that we have the next time trailers, but I don't know. I really don't know for that. Funtime Foxy thinks the temple is connected with the division. Good idea. I'm not so sure myself, but I could be proven wrong. At the very least, it seems the temple has been around since the dawn of the universe. I think they said that earlier in the episode. But whether or not that links in with the division, I don't know. Vinda and the Skullface guy, great name for him, seem to be wearing clothes that look like the division. Interesting. I didn't notice that myself. Funtime Foxy, I can imagine Ryan and Graham seeing the Sontarans and being like, God's sake, Doctor, what have you done? Also, I love the idea of Martha Jones just going around kicking Sontaran arse. Yes. Oh, I love that idea as well. Yeah, it's a shame in a way that Martha Jones couldn't have made a cameo in this episode and helped Dan out. I'm still holding out hope that Martha may appear in a future episode, but we'll have to wait and see. Dave H thinks the planet Time could be the planet where the Doctor is from. Interesting, yes. And could the Ravagers be from the same planet? Yeah, that's an interesting theory. Funtime Foxy, I'm holding my opinion. The Ravagers are from the other side of the gateway, where the Doctor was originally from. Yes, I think a few people think that, to be honest. And as we saw in the next time trailer for next week's episode, we saw that bit where the Doctor is falling through a purple like vortex, and that looked very similar to that boundary place that we saw at the end of last series. So yeah, potentially we will find out a bit more about where the Doctor came from. But Chibnall has to be very careful with that, because part of the appeal of the Doctor is how we don't know that much about her background. And yes, Chibnall has actually created more mystery for the Doctor, but you can't then answer all of the questions about where has she come from, why has she got these regeneration powers. There still has to be some mystery there, but we just have to wait and see. Funtime Foxy, it's also nice to see with the Sontarans when they say they will do something, they actually will. Like the parlay, it's something we don't get enough of. Yeah, very good point. And just to bring up the killing again, it's nice to see the villains actually execute people and not do what a lot of villains do, which is talk about killing people and then never go through with it. They just end up monologuing and then the Doctor stops them. But in this episode, I'm thinking mainly about that scene in modern day Liverpool. They lined up those people and just shot them on the spot. That blew my mind. I was just like, wow. I think I thought that Dan would stop the Sontarans killing them. I didn't expect him to continue hiding. But he made the right choice, because if he did try and stop them, the Sontarans would have just turned around and shot him straight away. And that would have been the end of Dan's character. TM Martin, what do you make of the drop in the viewing figures for the series premiere? Where did those viewers go? Ah, yes. So the viewing figures debate. To be honest, I was expecting the figures to be less than... Is it less than what the end of Series 12 had? I'll have to look into this again. I think it's less than the Series 12 premiere. Do correct me if I'm wrong. What was it you were asking? What do I make of the drop? Where did they go? I think part of it was due to the fact it was Halloween, and people may have been trick-or-treating. I also think part of it was to do with the poor promotion of the series. I'm not sure what you guys have made of it, but I thought it was a bit of a shambles, to be honest. The past couple of weeks has had good promotion, but we should have had a series trailer, like a proper series trailer, not that weird tease we got back in July. We should have had a proper trailer months ago, not less than, I think it was less than 3 weeks before the series premiere that we finally got a trailer. And I think that led to many people not being excited for the series or not even knowing it was coming back. I think that's a big reason why there was less people watching. And then the third factor is the sad factor. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think just a lot of people don't like the Chibnall era. Loads of people gave it a go in Series 11. You could argue that that series was quite poor, so people dropped off after that. And then I think even more people dropped off after the whole Timeless Child revelation. And I can kind of see why, to be honest, because it was controversial. So I think some people are just waiting for Russell T Davies to take over, to be honest. Tia Martin, like Swarm and Azure, better than Tim Shaw. Yeah, me too. I never minded Tim Shaw, but he wasn't the most memorable villain, let's be honest. Whereas Swarm and Azure, hopefully they'll be remembered for years to come, as long as they're used really well in the remaining episodes of this series. And that's why I'm quite worried about the series finale, to be honest. If their grand plan isn't as exciting as we're hoping it to be, and it's being built up to be, it's just going to deflate everything. For me, at least. I don't know about you guys. But no, I've got my fingers crossed. Chibnall's doing well with them so far. Hopefully that continues. Tia Martin is still intrigued about Claire and how she knows about the Doctor. Yep, exactly the same with me. Dave H, the temple needs repairing. Could it be linked with the TARDIS and that's why the TARDIS is wrong? Excellent point there. Hadn't even thought of that myself. Yeah. So, and that's something else to ask. At what point did the temple start malfunctioning? Was it because of the flux? Is it because of something else? Is it to do with the fact that Swarm escaped his prison? No idea. Again, it's something I hope we get answers to at some point. What was the other thing you said? Yeah, could it be linked with the TARDIS? I think quite possibly, but we'll have to wait and see. Casey Link, if your voice is going, run after it. I thought you meant go for a run. And I was thinking, I'm not doing that at this time of day. And I wouldn't run anyway, to be honest. I'm the most inactive person ever. Tia Martin, Bob Baker created the K9 character. And have I changed my mind about possibly bringing back K9, perhaps for Series 14 and the new/old Russell T Davies era? As much as I like K9, I don't really care about him coming back, to be perfectly honest with you. He's had a good run. He appeared in not just Doctor Who in recent years, but also the Sarah Jane Adventures. I know he dipped in and out of that show, but he still appeared. And I think, dare I say it, the whole idea of K9 is a bit old-fashioned now. If they could find a way of changing the technology and making it, I don't know, if they could make K9 hover, for instance, maybe they would have to use CGI for that. That would modernise it a bit. But as it stands, with the whole K9 model that has to trundle along the ground, I think, I don't know, we should just leave that in the past, to be honest. Geek Rambles meant the time when 10 had a go at Harriet Jones for blowing up the Sycorax. Oh, of course, yes. And 13 having a go at the Lieutenant for doing the same. Yeah, well done for making that connection. Funtime Foxy has just said Doctor Who Poop has released an Evil Dan theme. I'm going to watch that once I finish this live stream. I do love Doctor Who Poop. If you haven't already done so, go and subscribe to that channel and subscribe to their shorts channel as well. They've recently made a channel purely for short videos that are less than a minute long, and I think that's where they uploaded the Evil Dan video that I mentioned earlier. Excellent. So I'm all caught up with the messages. So if there's anything else you want to talk about, do message away. I'll try and think of a few more things as well. But if we can't think of anything, we might wrap this up in a couple of minutes. We've been going for nearly an hour at least. But yeah, I'm still riding a high after the episode. I'm just so happy with how that turned out. And it's just nice to enjoy an episode for a change. Like, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed a lot of episodes in series 12, but there was often aspects of the episodes that I didn't particularly enjoy. Like, just off the top of my head, the series finale, the Timeless Child revelation, I didn't really like. Looking back, Ryan was okay as a character, but I think it did frustrate me. Tosin Cole's performance, I think, admittedly, wasn't always that good. And often he was just used for exposition, so that frustrated me. I think I didn't like the fact that there was so many companions as well. Just having 4 is too many. Well, I think it's partly too many, but I think also because they weren't written as well as someone like Russell T Davies would have written them, it just wasn't enjoyable to see that many companions, and it gave each of them less to do. And it's like I said last week, what I loved about last week's episode is just because Yaz, most of the episode was just the Doctor and Yaz as the TARDIS team, Yaz had so much more to do. And she just became a more standout character because of it. So, a few more messages. Thank you, guys. Flying K9 says Funtime Foxy. Yeah, it's a great idea to think about. Hopefully one day we see that. Also, if the theme is time folding around the Doctor, it's perfect to bring back old companions and characters. Yes, and on that point, do we think Donna will be coming back? Because, as I'm sure you guys have seen, there's been many people speculating that Catherine Tate would be making a reappearance at some point. My opinion, I've got to be completely honest, as much as I love Catherine Tate and I love Donna, I do not want to see the character come back. As we all know, Donna has this thing where, because her mind was wiped, she can't remember the Doctor. So if she was to come back, there needs to be a logical reason for it, and Chibnall has to be very careful to not have the character realise who the Doctor is, because then her head will explode. And yeah, I just feel like, well, first of all, it's the fact that it's Russell T Davies' character. And I'm not saying that if someone invents a character, they should stay in their era, but I just feel like she had such a brilliant exit, a really emotional exit at the end of series 4, and then she had that epilogue, you could say, of coming back in the end of time, I can't see any logical reason for her to come back again. Like, we've already done that storyline of the Doctor having to hide from her and having Wilf become the companion instead. I still love that, by the way. I was thinking about this earlier today, actually. I love the fact that in David Tennant's final episodes, we had a companion who, first of all, was played by someone as legendary as Bernard Cribbins, but also just how refreshing it was to have a companion who was an elderly man. It's something that I don't think we'd ever had before that episode. We had Adelaide Brooke in the previous story, but that aired only a month ago. So it was quite a new thing to have a companion who was middle-aged and older. And yeah, I love Wilf. I know he's the reason the 10th Doctor died, but I don't care. I still love Wilf. He's one of my favourite characters, and I love him to bits. Yeah, so what was it we were talking about? Was it Donna? Yeah, so my opinion, I would rather Donna not come back. I won't be disappointed if she does come back. Obviously, Catherine Tate is a fantastic actress, and hopefully Chibnall would make it work. But I would much rather Martha Jones come back. First of all, because Martha is absolutely one of my favourite companions, if not the favourite. But also, Martha, it's easier for Martha to come back. Like, she is still on Earth somewhere. Yes, it's a bit problematic considering that she's married to Mickey Smith, and we all know what's happened with the actor that plays Mickey Smith, but there could be a reason for him to not come back. Martha could always say, oh, Mickey is in this other country fighting monsters, whatever, and that could be the reason for you-know-who to not appear. But yeah, I'd much rather Martha come back than Donna. And I've just remembered, actually, there's another theory that's going round that Rose could be coming back. And I think that's partly because of what loads of people noticed last week, the whole thing of Vinder's ship being named Outpost Rose. And I think a few people spotted that there was other references to Rose as well throughout that episode. I don't know if there's any references in tonight's episode. I'll have to go back and have a look. But could it be that Chibnall is hinting that he's bringing Rose back? Who knows? A bit like with Donna, I do feel like Chibnall has to be very careful because Rose was trapped in a parallel universe. She's got her own version of the Doctor. But I suppose given the choice of Donna or Rose, it would be easier to bring to bring Rose back than Donna, because Rose is allowed to interact with the Doctor at least, and there's no risk of her head exploding. But I guess in her case, I feel like she's had so many returns now. Would that diminish the impact of all the other ones? But then I guess it's been so many years since she's last appeared in the show. Would it matter? Probably not. Funtime Foxy, it could be interesting to see if the Doctor finds a dead companion, like how the Doctor goes back in time and finds dead famous people. Oh, that is a fantastic idea. Very dark idea, and I don't think it would be done, to be honest, but I would certainly be interested to see that. If time is being done with, it could cancel Donna's whole death when she remembers the Doctor. Yes, I think I understand what you mean there. Yeah, so I guess if time is being rewritten, that you could argue that does give Chibnall free rein to actually throw up the cannon and do what he wants with it, but he's got to be careful to not anger the fan base like he's already done with the Timeless Child. Funtime Foxy, yeah, that is true that Captain Jack Harkness came back and he's Russell T Davies's character, but well, the main thing I'd argue is Captain Jack is a character that can easily come back. He's someone that has the ability to travel in time. He's immortal, so he won't ever be killed off. And like I said before, the problem with Donna is the last time we saw her, it was established that she can't ever see the Doctor or remember. Actually, that's a point. I've just realised now as I was speaking. So, assuming the Sontarans also invaded wherever Donna is living, will that have reminded her of her own encounter with the Sontarans and caused her to die? That's a very dark thought to think about. Hopefully Donna was just ill in bed and missed it all again. But if she did see the Sontaran invasion, she's probably dead now. How sad. Funtime Foxy, if I could have two companions to meet that hadn't, it would be Wilfred Mott and River Song. Yeah, very good choices there. I'd prefer to meet Wilfred than River, to be honest, but it would still be fun to meet River. Politico Coffee. Wasn't it interesting when the Doctor described herself as a former president of Gallifrey? Yes, very good point there. Was that new information? I'm not an expert on Classic Who, so for all I know, it's been established before that she's been a president of Gallifrey. But that was news to me, to be honest. I didn't know that the Doctor had once been a president of Gallifrey. So whether or not that's a hint for a future episode, or I've just missed something, I don't know. T.M. Martin, I wouldn't be surprised if Russell T Davies brought back Rose somehow. I'd rather see Martha Jones though. Yes, yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. So as we all know, Russell T Davies is coming back. But then I'm just trying to think, would he bring Rose back? Or would he realise that he himself has brought her back so many times? I think he probably won't bring her back, to be honest. I don't know about Martha, though. He might try to encourage Freema Agyeman to come back, but it's whether she's too famous and busy to do it that I don't know. I do think, hopefully this happens, but I do think Russell may potentially bring back Ace, Sophie Aldred. That would be really fun to see. We might have another episode that's a bit like School Reunion, where we have a classic companion come back. And I don't know about you guys, but the episodes I've seen of Ace, she is one of my favourite companions, certainly from Classic Who. I'm not quite sure where I would rate her in comparison to the modern companions, but in terms of the classic ones, she's definitely up there. So I would definitely be up for seeing her in the main show again. Funtime Foxy, Capaldi was the president in Hellbent. Oh, okay. To be honest, that's an episode that I haven't rewatched in years, so I really can't remember. But yeah, I think that does ring a bell actually, so perhaps that was the one that established it. Russell is literally teaming up with a company called Bad Wolf. Yeah, I know. Well, I think the name was set up because the people in charge actually came from Doctor Who when it was Russell's era of the show. It was Jane Tranter and Julie Gardner. And if you're sad enough, like I am, to know all of these behind the scenes people, they were two of the three biggest people that helped Doctor Who be such a success in the Russell T Davies era. So I think when they set up their own production company, that's why they called it Bad Wolf, as like a homage to Doctor Who, I think. And just because it's a cool name for a production company. Politico Coffee, Doctor as President in The Invasion of Time, which aired in 1978. The fourth Doctor, Tom Baker, starred then, and this story also marked the final appearance of Louise Jameson as Leela. Thank you for letting me know. Yeah, that's a story that I've not seen before, so I think that's why I didn't know the Doctor was a president of Gallifrey. I do need to watch that actually. I noticed that the Sontarans appear in that story, and this week I've just been going mad for the Sontarans. I said earlier I watched the Time Warrior for the first time because I wanted to see their very first appearance. I also rewatched the Sontaran Stratagem and the Poison Sky because I wanted to see the last time the Sontarans were taken seriously in the modern series. Then the following day, I watched the Sarah Jane Adventures story, The Last Sontaran, to have even more Sontaran action, and because I thought it made sense to see the episode, which was essentially a direct sequel to the Series 4 two-parter. And then after that, the following day, I then watched the Sarah Jane Adventures Series 2 finale, Enemy of the Bane, because, as you guys hopefully know, the same Sontaran, I've forgotten his name now, Karg, that's it, he comes back in that story as well. See, this is one of the things I love about the Russell T Davies era of the show. Everything links. You've got the spin-offs linking to the main show, and then within the spin-offs, you've got sequels to previous stories. So for just these 3 stories, you've got the Sontaran Stratagem, which, well, first of all, that's essentially a sequel to Series 3, because you find out what Martha Jones did next. And then that in itself leads into The Last Sontaran, because it shows Karg escaping the events of that Series 4 two-parter. And then, at the end of that story, he gets sent away into space, and then he returns in the Series 2 finale of the Sarah Jane Adventures, and teams up with the Bane. And then that's another link. Mrs. Wormwood reappears in that episode, and that links back with the very first episode of the Sarah Jane Adventures. There's just so many different links between episodes and spin-offs. And this is part of the reason why I'm so excited for Russell T Davies to come back, because hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll have a lot more of this interlocking nature of the stories. And fingers crossed as well, hopefully we get a lot more spin-offs. I know Russell said before, I think a few years ago, he made a quote saying that Doctor Who is such a big thing that there should be, I think he said, a whole channel for Doctor Who, and there'd be different spin-offs focusing on different characters and monsters. I love that idea, but obviously budget would be the big reason why that can't happen. And sadly, audience as well. Since Russell left the show, viewing figures have steadily been going down, and hopefully by the time he comes back, the viewing figures will go up again. But it's going to take a lot of work, to be honest, because I think a lot of people have been put off by the show. Not just in Chibnall's era, it's not all his fault. I think it's partly Stephen Moffat as well. Although his era was good overall, I think it did put some people off. But yeah, we have to wait and see for that. Okay. Funtime Foxy, it will be interesting to potentially see the Weeping Angels interact with the Cybermen. Yes. Although, to be honest, I think the Weeping Angels would just be a cameo next week. From the look of the Next Time trailer, I think they appear in Yaz's police car. I think I seem to notice Yaz was in her police uniform, sitting in the driver's seat of the car, and I think the Weeping Angel appeared behind her. But that's a thought. How can the Weeping Angel appear in the back seat? Or was it through the window? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see for that. But I'm hoping I'm wrong here, but potentially the Weeping Angels will only appear in a single scene next week, and it will be to establish how the Doctor and the gang end up in the 70s for the episode 4 episode. But I would love it if they appear for more than just a one scene, because I freaking love the Weeping Angels. But if all else fails, we've got a whole episode of them for episode 4, Village of the Angels. So yeah, that should be really good. As long as it's got scary bits in it, and as long as the Weeping Angels have a lot of screen time, that episode should be a lot of fun. I am optimistic about it. It's the only episode this series co-written by another writer. I think Maxine Alderton, hopefully I've got the name right, she'll be co-writing that episode. And I think she wrote The Haunting of Villa Diodati last year, which was a standout episode for a lot of the fandom. So yeah, fingers crossed, I keep saying series. Fingers crossed, chapter 4 of this series will be one of the highlights. I reckon it will. I think any episode that has Weeping Angels in it already goes up in people's expectations, but it has to make sure it lives up to what people will hope for the episode. Politico Coffee. I want Russell T Davies back too. I just overlooked the Timeless Child conundrum. He's going to draw the audience back, I hope. Yeah, I'm the same. Because I'm someone that doesn't particularly like the Timeless Child storyline, I'm just ignoring it for now, to be honest. And I'm hoping that Chibnall doesn't really return to it that much. But it looks like he will. We've got the Division more for that storyline at least. But actually, I don't necessarily mind the Division. It's more if they dwell too much on the fact that the Doctor has had lots of lives before the first Doctor. I don't know. It's a difficult line to tread. I'm just going to be optimistic that wherever Chibnall takes the story next, hopefully it's something that I enjoy and I don't get annoyed at it. Politico Coffee would love to see Torchwood return, and so would Jack Harkness, I bet. Yeah, I'm the same. I love Torchwood. I love Captain Jack. I've recently downloaded lots of Torchwood Big Finish audios because I missed the show so much. But yeah, I would love it to come back on screen. Funtime Foxy thinks Yaz has an image of an angel in her car. That could be an idea. Yeah, maybe it comes out of that. Okay. Right, I'll just get through these last few messages and then I think I'll have to go, guys, because my heart feels a bit funny for some reason. Hopefully I'm not about to have a heart attack, but I just want to take it easy. Don't know why it's playing up, but I'll just try to ignore it. I'll have a drink at least and hope that helps. If I suddenly collapse, please do call the police. I'll keep the live stream running, and you never know, maybe my viewing figures will go up if it's suddenly revealed that I'm having a heart attack live on camera. But hopefully that doesn't happen. Touch wood. Funtime Foxy, we haven't had a whole Weeping Angel episode since the Angels Take Manhattan, and that was, you've put Sag, but I'm guessing you meant to say sad. Yeah, it's been 9 years since the last Weeping Angel episode, which I can't believe. To be honest, the Angels Take Manhattan is perhaps my least favourite Weeping Angel story, and I think it is one of Moffat's weakest scripts, to be honest. I did like Amy and Rory's exit, and it was very emotional, but there was a lot of plot holes in that episode. And yeah, truth be told, I've actually not rewatched that episode in about 8 years, probably. I think I probably rewatched it within a year of it first airing, but since then I've just stayed away from it because I just remember, even when it first aired, it did annoy me a lot. And I think part of that, I think I should give it some credit. I think part of the reason why I criticised it when it was first broadcast is I think I was watching it with a group of friends, and we were at that age, I think we were about 14 or 15, we were at that age where we were sort of growing out of Doctor Who, although I'm never going to grow out of it really. But it was a lot easier for us to pick faults at the show rather than just enjoy it for what it is. And so a lot of my friends were being critical of various things and laughing at bits that weren't meant to be funny. And I think that was rubbing off on me, to be honest. But But yeah, regardless of the reason, ever since then, I've not really had that high an opinion of The Angels Take Manhattan. Weeping Angels are scary, says T.M. Martin. Yeah. And yeah, after the Doctor Who games we've had recently, The Edge of Time, The Edge of Reality, and The Lonely Assassins, I've realised that even in adulthood, I'm still terrified of them. And in fact, I think I'm more scared of them now than I've ever been watching the show. I actually missed Blink Live when it first aired. I didn't become a fan until the following week, which is probably for the best, because I think if Blink was one of my first episodes, I would have not watched the show again. I would have been so terrified that I think I would have assumed that every episode was as scary as that episode, so I just would have stayed clear of it. But yeah, so that was an episode I watched on catch up like months later, and I don't remember being that scared of it, but maybe that's because I watched it during the day. And then the Angels, no, not the Angels Take Manhattan, the next story, The Time of Angels, had its odd scary bits, but yeah, again, I don't remember being particularly scared. And then The Angels Take Manhattan, I wasn't scared of at all, to be honest. I was more upset that Amy and Rory left. And yeah, the only time that I can think of that I was truly terrified of the Weeping Angels is playing all three of those Doctor Who games that we've had recently. Those of you that saw my Let's Play of The Edge of Time, you would have seen me absolutely brick it in that level. If you haven't seen that video, do check it out if you've got a moment. Even I enjoy watching it back, just seeing how terrified I am. Because that's the thing, like, I was in that VR world. I hadn't watched any gameplay clips or seen other people play it beforehand, so I had no idea when the Weeping Angels would appear. And like, even in the part of the level which wasn't scary, I constantly had my back to the wall. I was trying to look everywhere. I was worried about turning around because I never knew when the Weeping Angels would appear. So, and yeah, as I said in the video, and I think since then, that is without question the most scared I've ever been playing a game before. And then The Lonely Assassins came out a few months ago. I played that. I nearly recorded myself playing it, but I decided against it in the end. And yeah, that I found just as scary. Not quite as scary, actually, but it still had me sort of looking at my phone, like covering my eyes whilst doing it. And then recently, one of my recent videos on the channel, I played through the newest game, The Edge of Reality, and that had a similar level to The Edge of Time. And again, it wasn't quite as scary, but they had actually changed the level and made it suit a console game. And I thought it worked so well. Like, you actually held a torch and you had to navigate your way through like a labyrinth of a crypt, I think it was. And whenever you turned a corner, you could hear stone moving on the ground behind you. And yeah, that scared me as well. Again, if you've got a moment and you haven't already seen the video, go on my channel, look for that video. Both of the Weeping Angel level videos I'm scared in, so it does make for an interesting watch. Thank you, Politico Coffee, for your nice message. Hopefully see you for next week's live stream, if I have the time to do one. Thank you, TM Martin, as well. Okay, yeah, right, so seeing as people are saying their farewells, we might as well leave it there. We've been going for an hour and 24 minutes at least, which is actually longer than last week's one. So yes, we will leave it there. Thank you very much, guys, for watching this video. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you've enjoyed this chat and hearing my thoughts on the video, please do leave a like on the video, as it really does mean a lot to me. And thank you to those of you that have already liked the video. That does give me a bit of a boost, which is nice. Thank you for your messages as well. It's been great discussing the episode with you, and I hope you've enjoyed the chat, and hopefully you've enjoyed the episode as well. hopefully see you next week for Once Upon Time. It's an episode that I know hardly anything about, and hopefully it won't disappoint. Take care, guys, and I'll hopefully see you then. Bye.